Okay. Now we do.
All right, we have 5 public hearings tonight, so we're going to start with those. So we have we'll start off with roll call, please, 6:35.
6:35. Chairman Osterman,
Here.
Supervisor Plotecker. Here. Commissioner Nelson,
Present.
Commissioner Meyer is absent and excused. No, he is not online. Commissioner Eberly is absent and excused. Commissioner Olhafen,
Here.
Commissioner Mouche,
Here.
Planner Holloway. Engineer Mitch Lysis is on Zoom. Administrator Nicholas. Here. We've got Supervisor Linda Beal for the public hearing. Here. Attorney John Macy. And Clerk Elisa Capazzo to record the minutes.
Thank you. So we have a quorum of both the town board and the plan commission here. All right, notice was given that public hearings will be held by the Lisbon Plan Commission on Thursday, August 5th, 2021, during the regular plan commission meeting, which starts at 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Memorial Fire Station at North 54 West 26455 Lisbon Road, Lisbon, Wisconsin 53089, to solicit public comments on the following. We have public hearing number 1, which is a joint public hearing with the Town Board of Supervisors regarding amendments to the town zoning code, in particular but not limited to sections 5 signs and subsequent incorporation of sign regulations into Lisbon's Code of Ordinances. Rachel, why don't you start off?
Based on a previous meeting with the Plan Commission and experience in reviewing sign proposals, the town had recently updated the sign code regulations within the zoning ordinance in 2020. We found in trying to apply those regulations to specific sign proposals, there have been some issues with the ordinance and things that were not foreseen at the time, and as a result, staff is directed to update the ordinance.
Everybody, can you hear?
No, Mr. Chairman, I barely hear Rachel. Is there?
Testing. Is it coming through the speaker?
No, I'm hearing your voice, but I don't.
Hello, hello? You just need to speak louder? Okay,
Sorry.
that's all right. Is this better?
You're now.
I'm not hearing it through the speaker, but
Let's see. Am I coming? Yes, I am.
maybe I'll try.
Because it's just not projecting your voice.
Can you hear me through this one? A little bit better?
Sorry.
All right. Okay. So yes, staff has been, we've started drafting updates to the sign regulations. Nothing too major, but really working in more flexibility for the Plan Commission. So what you have in your packets tonight is an initial draft at some modifications. And the plan is to get your feedback on a few specific questions about the sign regulations tonight and what you'd like to see so that we can finalize the documents and bring them back for a public hearing next month, correct? And there's a staff memo in the packet that outlines the changes that are in the regulations currently. So just to run through really briefly, updating references to the appropriate section, we would be taking the sign code regulations out of the zoning code. So that would allow more easy modifications. So it wouldn't require a Board of Appeals variance process if somebody couldn't meet the sign requirements for any reason. And that isn't necessarily an appropriate venue for sign variances anyway, in my opinion. It clarifies the definitions of pole signs, which are not actually allowed. I don't think that was clear in the current ordinance. Gives Plan Commission discretion to approve waivers to any sign standard. This is sort of where I think we were going in our previous discussion. That's following some past practice when sign regulations were not in the zoning code. So this is sort of going back to what a practice that Lisbon had been doing previously. It increases the size for monument signs, the allowance for those, particularly for subdivision signs, because there are several in the town existing that are larger than what your recent sign code would allow. So a practical matter, upping that limit. In modifying a sign chart, there were a couple of zoning districts that had been inadvertently omitted, so those are added in so that every district has a mention in the sign code. These would now be housed under a new chapter 17 ordinance. And just a few things wanting to check on if the sizes, if the sizes make sense, if you like the way the discretion language is written into the ordinance. And there also is an option that I would recommend if it makes sense to you to maybe replace or remove one type of sign as far as like how they're defined. I think that would make this much easier to read and interpret. I mean, I can understand it, but it shouldn't take, a ton of effort to understand a sign ordinance in my view. So I think that could be simplified a little further if you would like to go there. And also just a question, would you like to regulate temporary signs? Does what's written in the ordinance now work for you as a town, or would you like some changes? So if you could provide feedback on that tonight, I would certainly appreciate it and could bring back something that would be really ready for the public hearing. I'll leave it there. If you have questions for me, I will do my best to answer.
All right, is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this public hearing? No one here for this? Anyone on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom.
Then close this public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, if we don't want to have to renotice it, the planner said several times that she wanted to bring back a more detailed draft after your discussions later. So I'd recommend, unless the staff is planning on renoticing it, that we could adjourn to a time and date certain, and then we wouldn't have to renotice the public. Does that make sense?
Understood. Is there,
Save some
next
taxpayer
meeting?
money. Next meeting.
when is the next meeting?
The second.
September 2nd, yes.
We need a motion to adjourn till September 2nd at 6:30, please.
And that'll be here at the station. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ed Nelson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Point of procedure, does this town board have to also vote on that?
Each community is different, not necessarily. We can say it's a joint motion. Some communities do, Commissioner. Some just assume that it is a joint motion.
Okay.
And the staff could so note that it's a motion of both the town board and the planning.
That'll take us to public. That was at 6:43. That was about 6:43 when we actually did that. All right, public hearing number 2 is a request for amendment to a general conditional use permit for addition of 3 buildings to a storage facility in the M2 General Industrial Zoning District for applicant Andrew Ream, Storage Works at Lisbon LLC for property located at West 232 North 5040 Corey Corners Parkway, Lisbon, tax key LSBT 0284.994.005. Rachel.
I believe the applicant is here tonight. I would like to defer to him first if he has some comments to present.
Dudes.
Yep.
Can you come up?
Step up.
To the microphone. There's a big round button, just slide it to the right, wait for the screen to light up, and you should be able to talk just fine.
Testing.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for having me come through Plan Commission and take a look at our project again. Again, my name is Andy Ream. I own Storage Works and our home office is right there on Corey Corners. We are proposing to put on 3 new buildings. It was really shown as a phase 2 from our original Plan Commission back in like 2016, 2017. That was a while ago now. Currently, right now, we're at 224 units, 52,000 square feet. Of those 224, we're leased up to 223. So we're ready to expand into those next pieces. What we're looking to do on our phase 2 and those 3 buildings is to build an additional 36,000 square feet with 149 units. Architecturally and also site layout, it's almost exactly per our original submission. Architecturally, the finishes will continue on be the same as we wrap around. Garages all face inward, so nothing will face outwards. And we're still going to remain fully secured and fenced that wraps around the entire property. So I think as an overall whole, it's just a continuation of what we already have, and we're sticking to the plan that we originally proposed back in 2016.
All right, Rachel?
Thank you. And just to add on to that, as he indicated, the town did approve a conditional use, or sorry, approve this as a site plan of operation in 2016. And it was always planned as a two-phase project. The Plan Commission did ask at that time that he would come back before the Plan Commission just to, before proceeding with phase two. So that was part of the meeting minutes from that previous approval. Since that time in 2017, Lisbon had adopted amendments to the zoning ordinance that made self-storage mini warehouse operations a conditional use in the M2 zoning district. And just as a procedural point, staff is viewing his existing operation as a legal approved conditional use, having that status because it was approved prior to that ordinance change. However, this is being processed as a conditional use amendment because that is now a conditional use in the ordinance. So it included some language from the zoning ordinance on that. And this is only subject to town zoning. There's no county shoreland zoning on the site. And I would also note the stormwater management plan for the entire site was previously approved or already approved by Waukesha County. And the site was actually previously graded in anticipation of this second phase. I will leave it there as far as the public hearing.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in this public hearing tonight? Anyone on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom.
All right. And then close that public hearing at 6:47. Is there a reason for Linda, if she has something to do, stick around? Do we need her anymore? You can stay if you want. We're willing to have you.
I would just stay to the end.
Sure, no problem. All right, open public hearing number 3 then, which is a conditional use permit request for a major grading permit in the M2 General Industrial Zoning District for applicant Andrew Ream, Storage Works Lisbon LLC for the property located at the West 232.
Sir, you still
You got one more to go. North 5040 Corey Corners Parkway, Lisbon, Wisconsin. LSPT 0284.994.005.
Okay, so this is for technically a second public hearing is required for the major grading permit portion of the project because of the amount of land that would be disturbed. This would disturb about 2 acres of land as part of the project, even though it was previously graded, obviously to install pavement and buildings, he needs to do some earthwork. And some of that would be converted to impervious surface. I already mentioned the stormwater plan has been approved by the county, and staff comments are all in the meeting packet. I'll leave it there for now.
Is anyone here to speak on this public hearing? Zoom,
Nothing on Zoom.
you have anything to add? All right, close that one then at 6:48. And go to public hearing number 4, which is a conditional use permit request for a truck wash in the B4 local business zoning district for applicants Amin Nawahaman for the property located at County Highway K and Corey Corners Parkway, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53072, tax scale LSPT 0284.994.001. So I believe we don't have much to present on this one yet tonight.
No, the town has not received any new information, but because this item was tabled at the previous plan commission meeting to this month, we had to have another public notice posted. But we would be recommending tabling action tonight until the applicants are ready to move ahead.
The motion would be a motion to, we should first see if there's, the petitioner has anything to say, Mr. Chairman.
Anything to add?
No, you're aware that you need to come back next month with the details, or as soon as you get them done. Did you anticipate having the materials in a timely manner for next month's meeting?
I hope.
Okay.
Those were due at 4:30 today, just to clarify.
Oh, so they won't be on next month?
Correct.
Could it be tabled to an indefinite?
No, not indefinite, or you got to
Yeah.
Oh, I
renotice.
see.
If all materials are turned in on or before September 2nd, you can be heard at the October Plan Commission meeting.
Would you have enough time to send them in? No?
The cutoff for September Plan Commission was today at 4:30.
You,
Because the deadline for Plan Commission is the date of the previous
Is there anyone that, there's nobody, I'm assuming, on Zoom for this public hearing, just make sure. Is anyone here?
Everyone on Zoom is staff.
All right, does anyone here wish to speak on this public hearing? All right, so we'd be looking and make a motion to table until October 7th. That will be, or adjourn, excuse me, until October 7th. I'm assuming that meeting will also be here at the Richard Young Station at 6:30. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Nelson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
And I got 6:51, Chairman.
Thank you. Go to public hearing number 5, which is a conditional use permit request for a wedding and event farm in the A5 mini farm zoning district for David and Kim Meyer for Heartland Weddings and Events for the property located at W259 North 8598 State Road 164, Heartland, Wisconsin 53029, tax key LSBT 0178.995.001. We have the applicant here. David, would you like to start off with any comments on it? Just state your name and address if you would. David Meyer.
Is that? Is there a light on the screen? Switch the button over to the right.
How's that?
There we
There
go.
you go.
David Meyer, W259 and 8598 State Road 164 in Heartland, Wisconsin. I know you guys have the packets I wrote up. They're fairly similar to close to what my wife and I went through back in 2019. So I thought I'd do a little bit differently. I just wrote up something the other day to kind of explain stuff. I'm learning it's kind of tough and expensive to start a business in Wisconsin. I've also learned to take notes, so I actually made notes for this one because I was at our daughter's wedding this summer and I forgot about 20% of my speech, so we'll do it this way. I'll just read it. I'm here by myself tonight. My wife has decided to kind of stop dealing with the 3 years of ups and downs, roller coasters that we've been going through. When the town attorney told her that in a phone call about 2 weeks ago, that we couldn't have the cars parked more than 500 feet from our property line. Both of us were a little bit surprised just because of, what we had in 2019. I think that kind of put her over the edge and she's just kind of done dealing with it, but I want to at least get my $600 worth and come to the meeting tonight and talk to you about it. There were numerous times that I've said, kind of, forget this project. And other times my wife has, been fed up with different aspects of what we've had to go through so far to get kind of a maybe, a possibly, a maybe not, a no way or a yes that we could do our little dream that we have. I'm sure other couples attempting to start a business have argued over things like we have. Obviously, no matter what happens, if we get the business or not, we still love each other and we're going to support each other. So in 2019, 2020, obviously was a very difficult year for many people, including ours. Obviously we had to deal with the COVID issues just like everybody else. We dealt with death in the family, also some personal health issues. I'm sure we're not the only possible business owners in the county, state, or country that had to kind of postpone starting projects or doing projects later than what you had thought or what we had thought as well. We had decided back in March of this year to kind of shut down the project, to be frank with you guys, just because of all the stuff that we've kind of been going through. We did have our daughter's wedding at our barn. I worked my butt off to get it ready to what it is.
Dave, right now.
Yeah.
What we're looking for is, if anyone is here for a public hearing portion, so it's explain your project.
Right?
Okay, you're gonna have another chance at this when we come up later in the agenda with us to go back and forth.
Okay,
So
all
we're not gonna have any back and forth with you right now.
right,
It's just you're gonna be able to explain the project and Rachel's gonna be able to explain the project. And if anyone has questions, because it is a public hearing, we'll
Okay.
address them, but the board isn't gonna go back and forth right now. So if you can just get like a brief overview maybe of what you got, and then
Yeah.
Rachel give an overview and then,
I'm thinking pretty close to that section now, at least from what I wrote down. We haven't built the bathrooms in the barn yet. It worked out pretty well that we did food kind of service and stuff in that area that we were gonna build the bathrooms inside the barn. So one of the two, I think it's two issues that were, well, three with the parking. One of the two things we're asking as a change or amendment is to not build the bathrooms in a barn at this time. Give the renters of the event barn afford them the opportunity to kind of pay for what they would like at, when they have their event. Obviously, there's, cheaper bathrooms and there's more expensive, like we spent $2,300 for a four bathroom trailer to have our wedding, which was very nice, or my daughter's wedding, I should say. The other issue was just a mistake originally from 2019 on the dates. My wife had put April through, I think, September, and it should be May through October. So it's not a huge change. It's just a date thing. And then the other big issue that's come up is the parking issue of not being allowed to have the business more than or have people park more than 500 feet from our property line, which, as you know, in the write-up, it's about 2.3 miles away as far as driving to the event itself. So the rest of it is pretty similar to, what we have done or what we asked before. I've kind of done as much as I can in the barn myself to get it ready for my daughter's wedding, because that was our goal. And then, like I said, we kind of decided to shut it down, and now we're flipping back the other way. The attorney asked for some info on lighting. Brian may have this already, I'm not sure, but my electrician gave me I made 12 copies of the boxes that he put in. The lights were, we put them in. They're from Menards. We put them in and they look very nice, but we realized that it's gonna have to be upgraded to ingress and egress lighting and have the battery backup and all that stuff. So we know we have to do that. My electrician said when I talked with him numerous times, right now, we really don't know what them are gonna look like or what they are yet. What brand, that type of thing. I'll get them when we're ready to do it, if we get this. But I have copies of that. She also asked about just a little diagram regarding the parking. I just kind of there's actually room for 11 spots. Each one is at a minimum, I wrote down, I think 15 by 11 or 12 foot by 15 foot. And I made 12 copies of that as well. So I don't know if you want that or not, but I do have them tonight. So hopefully they'll help a little bit.
so again, this isn't back and forth right now. This is just you presenting your project, and then we'll have Rachel go, and then we will have back and forth though when it's under your.
Sure.
agenda
I think that's it. Sorry.
item.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rachel.
And to clarify, I'm not the town attorney, I'm just the town planner. So give me a promotion, I don't warrant there. Yeah, so Mr. Meyer gave a good overview of the reason he's coming back with the proposal, the changes that are proposed from what was approved in 2017. And they have completed some site grading and landscaping since that time. The barn was partially renovated, as he's indicating. But there were several conditions of approval from that 2019 town approval that were never fully resolved. At least we could not find records of them, and that has been part of this process with working with the applicants and trying to fill in the gaps on this if they're truly ready to move forward. At this time, those things, there are some pieces that are not yet resolved. And although the key piece for a process here, although this was granted a conditional use permit previously, it did expire after 1 year because the operation was not up and running. And so this is being viewed as an entirely new review. We have to look at the ordinance as it reads today. And I know there was a different planner at the time and different plan commissioners. So Mr. Meyer mentioned the bathrooms are a key issue. Parking is a big key issue, and I wasn't here when that was discussed, a couple of years ago, but the zoning code is clear on the fact that parking for any business operation must be within 500 feet of the property or of the principal use is the way it's worded. And so that's a sticky issue to work through. And I know that was something previously where they were trying to secure offsite parking. When I began the review, I thought that was a little more buttoned up and had been under the impression that had been fully approved and vetted, but upon closer review, it appeared that was not actually the case. And certainly there's a town ordinance issue there too that needs to be addressed. It can't be overlooked based on the way the zoning rules are implemented. So tonight, we can talk more about the details of the proposal. The bathrooms, we had the staff report, just as a clarification. I did mention the state building inspector had told us at one point that the portable toilets could not be used for this type of facility. Then the inspector actually clarified and said they could be used, but it's a town discretion under a conditional use permit. So it was a little tricky trying to get to the facts of what is and is not allowed while we're trying to finalize the staff review for this meeting. So just wanted to clarify that from the outset during the public hearing. And I guess I will leave it there for the hearing portion.
Right. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak at this public hearing? Anyone on Zoom?
No hands on Zoom.
Close that public hearing at 7:02. And that'll bring us into the regular plan commission meeting. We've already done roll call. Item 2 is citizens' comments. Is there anyone here that wishes to make any citizens' comments tonight? We'll get back to you when you're. Anyone on Zoom? Hands up.
Oh, no.
Item 3 is minutes. Discussion necessary action on the following minutes, the July 1st, 2021 Plan Commission meeting minutes. You have them in the packet. Is there any comments or questions on the minutes, or is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Moved by Jeff Mouche to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ed Nelson. Any final discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 4, unfinished business. A, discussion and necessary action on the request by Amin and Nuwan Hadam for the property located on County Highway K and Quarry Corners Parkway, Pewaukee, Wisconsin, 53072, tax scale SPT 0284.994.001 for a conditional use permit for a truck wash in the B4 local business zoning district. Were we looking to table this or? All right, looking for a motion. I'll make the motion to table this until the October 7th Plan Commission meeting. Is there a second?
We'll second that, Mr.
Second by
Chairman.
Nelson. No discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 5, new business. A, discussion and necessary action on a request by Andrew Ream Storage Works Lisbon LLC for the property located at West 232 North 5040 Quarry Corners Parkway, LSBT 0284.994.005 in the M2 General Industrial Zoning District for the following. We have the amendment to the site plan and plan of operation, and the amendment to the conditional use permit, and the major grading conditional use permit. The applicant Andrew is still here. Rachel?
Sure, I can just go into a little bit, hit the highlights of what is in the staff report. We discussed earlier that this is a 2-phase project. He's just coming in to finish phase 2. It has the stormwater management plan already approved by Waukesha County. The site is zoned M2 industrial. It's a town zoning jurisdiction only, no shoreland zoning. And this self-storage is a conditional use in the M2 district, so that requires a conditional use permit amendment tonight, as well as a site plan of operation amendment to get approval for phase 2. The hours of operation that Mr. Ream has stated are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., Saturdays, 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., but with 24/7 access for customers, which is a security card activated access to the site. That's also detailed in the report and the materials that the applicant has provided. There are already paved parking and circulation around the buildings, one access point onto Quarry Corners Parkway. So there would be no change to site access proposed as part of this project. It would just be an extension within the site going to the north from what is there currently. And as he mentioned earlier, it's involved the construction of 3 more buildings. There's no extra business signage proposed, and no changes that I could tell from trash or recycling, no outdoor storage proposed, no stormwater impacts, because that was already previously approved. This would be implementing that plan. And the staff report does try to summarize conditional use permit review criteria that's in your ordinance, as well as under recently changed state laws, certain provisions. So just a sort of as housekeeping for the commission, and town attorney can correct me if I'm misstating anything here, but for any conditional use permit that you all review as a commission, it's just good to note that the decision to approve or deny has to be supported by substantial evidence that's defined in the statutes. Facts and information, not merely personal preferences or speculation, has to be directly pertaining to the requirements and conditions an applicant must meet to obtain a conditional use permit, and that reasonable persons would accept in support of a conclusion. And so that types of facts and information have to be provided by the applicant. I feel like he's done a good job. We have a complete application, all the information that I needed to review this. And if the applicant meets those criteria or agrees to meet all the requirements and conditions specified in the town's ordinances or imposed by the town as part of an approval motion, the town must grant the permit, provided that the substantial evidence is presented. And your zoning code in section 4D, there are 10 criteria for any conditional use. Those are outlined in the staff report, just so you have them in front of you. And in addition, self-service storage units or mini warehouses have their own criteria. There are actually 12 listed in the zoning code that are specific to self-storage units. Those are also outlined in here, and I've considered those in writing up the staff report. There are comments then as far as how, based on the materials presented, does it address the criteria? I do feel like they were all basically met with the information provided by the applicant. I don't see any major concerns with this. So I'm happy to answer questions about what's in the report. Just in brief, it complies with the zoning district requirements. I didn't see any concerns against the town's comprehensive plan. Compatibility with character of the surrounding area, ingress, egress. These are supposed to be located on major or collector or arterial streets, but because this was already previously approved, I didn't see a concern with that. Landscaping plan, it does provide plantings around the perimeter, the north, west, and south sides of the site. The east side would not have plantings. I just would ask the commission to confirm if that meets your expectations for the site based on the ordinance. I didn't see anything there that would be a code problem. Security measures are outlined in the materials he provided. Site lighting would be directed downward and not onto adjacent properties. Did provide lighting, light fixture information. And I also did review the 2016 site plan of operation approval and conditions, and incorporated those into an updated set of conditions that try to reflect the new state requirements for conditional uses, as well as more recent practice for Lisbon on these types of approvals. So if you are wishing to approve it tonight, there are some recommended conditions language in the staff report that you could also modify as you see fit.
Are these newer conditions than was in the conditional use permit originally?
Yeah, so they actually did not, it was only in the site plan of operation approval originally. So everything speaking to conditional uses is brand new. Some of that is kind of standard language. Some of it is specific to the operation. I tried to specify in the conditional use permit conditions that this is limited to a specific parcel tax key number. that it's limited to Andrew Ream, the applicant, and Storage Works Lisbon LLC, specifically for a self-storage warehouse in the M2 district. And specified if, in working with the town attorney on this, he recommended including certain aspects of the operation if they're important in your conditions of approval for a conditional use permit. But more of the detailed stuff can typically be handled as part of a site plan of operation conditions. And I like that because then that gives you some latitude to maybe change if an applicant wanted to amend the site plan of operation, but he didn't feel like that needed a new conditional use permit process. I think it's nice to keep those separated as well.
Okay.
So.
Questions from the commission? Jeff?
Yeah, I have, well, maybe I'm gonna get on my soapbox a little bit here. I noticed in the application that there was gonna be a truck and trailer on site. Is that for the operation of the business? It seems it doesn't seem necessary for me for the business to operate. I'm wondering what its use is.
We have a small F-450 dump truck that we use as a plow truck. So we plow this facility and all our other facilities with it too. So this acts as our home base. Have a skid steer also that we keep inside, not outside though. And when snow gets high at other facilities, but that is usually for snow movement and also just maintenance and landscaping and refreshing mulch and all that. So trailer service is the skid steer, truck plows, and pull skid steer around for not only this property, but others.
Okay, thank you. Another question, your application was 3 full-time and 1 part-time. Is this additional people because of the expansion?
No, so it's a continuation of what we have.
Okay, so no additional.
No additional.
employees. Okay. By the way, I drove by there and I was impressed with the appearance of the place, so
Thank you.
I'd like to let you know that. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Ed?
Mirroring on what Mr. Mouche just said, ditto. I drove by the property approximately 2 days ago, and it's quite an upgrade for Quarry Corners in general. Now, I say I drove by, I obviously did not walk the perimeter. You can easily see where your addition is going to go.
We have 1 more spot left too, so.
I don't need to accumulate any more stuff in my life. You can clearly see to the east, Rachel, there's a tree line and other buildings, but there's a tree line back there. So, I mean, but landscaping is, I mean, the buildings themselves, you can just tell you've taken care of the property. And there are storage facilities and there are storage facilities. Yours is at the higher end, I would say at this point. Thank you.
No, I appreciate the compliments. We're there every day. And I wouldn't have it looking poorly and have to look at it too also every day. That'd be miserable. So that's our home base.
I should have read this. Do you have a temporary office at the site? Because obviously you have the regular storage building. There's another building that looks like it could be an office.
That is the retail office where we also sell boxes.
Okay,
And then our general operations is run out of there too. So the retail that services that specific site is on the north side of that smaller building that you're referring to.
okay.
And on the south side is our total operations that are run out of that.
All right. Okay. No further questions.
Brian?
I don't have anything other than to say that if the second phase goes as well as the first phase, I thought you did a nice job. And I echo basically what the other commissioner said, so.
Thank you.
Nothing else to say.
Becky?
I don't have anything.
All right, I guess my only question is no complaints on the conditional use permit that we have now. Everything's been good. Perfect. I don't have any questions either then.
Thank you, Commission.
All right. So as far as the amendment to the site plan and plan of operation, anything you have extra on that, John?
I do not. I mean, the commission may want to have 3 separate motions though, Mr. Chairman. So one for the original CU, or the amendment to the CU, one for the site plan and plan of operation, and one for the major gradings.
Sounds good. All right, so we'll be looking first of all for motion on the amendment to the site plan and plan of operation.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the request by Andrew Ream / Storage Works Lisbon LLC for the property located at West 232 North 5040 Quarry Corners Parkway / tax code LSBT of 0284.994.005 in the M2 General Industrial Zoning District for the following. The first item, amendment to site plan and plan of operation be approved as is presented with comments noted from town planner.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Brian. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Then we're looking for a motion on the amendment to the conditional use permit.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to read the,
No.
no? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So item 2, amendment to conditional use permit be approved as is presented. Also with note of town planner recommendations and comments.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And then we're looking for a motion on the major grading conditional use permit.
All right, Mr. Chairman, to move forward, item 3, to approve the major grading conditional use permit as stated site and tax code number and recommendations from town planner as so noted and presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Item B, discussion necessary action on request by David and Kim Meyer for Heartland Weddings and Events for the property located at West 259 North 8598 State Road Highway 164, Heartland, Wisconsin 53029, taxi LSPT 0178.995.001 in the A5 Mini Farm Zoning District for the following related to the wedding event barn, a conditional use permit, and a site plan and plan of operation.
Would you like me to start off?
Yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, I think we covered really the big key pieces in the public hearing portion of the meeting. Just to add a little bit more information, the site is zoned A5 mini farm, town jurisdiction only, and there's no change proposed. Hours of operation, according to the applicant, would be Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to midnight, from May 1st to October 31st. As Mr. Meyer mentioned, that would be a shift of 1 month, trying to get to later in the year compared to what was previously requested and approved. Facility users could arrive early, this is in the proposal, to prepare for events. And guests would have to be off premises by 1 a.m. I recommend the plan commission would discuss the hours if you want to do so tonight. Thing I noted in the comments and in reviewing the proposal, the site plan, we had 2 site plans that we were working with. One was the more hand-drawn version. It had certain elements shown on it. Another one had been prepared by the applicant's architect at one point. They had some discrepancies between them. So what I was sort of lacking was just one site plan that I could refer to say this is the one that we're reviewing. I think that would make it a little simpler. Really just the differences were really one showing more of the landscaping. I think the hand-drawn one had more of the landscaping shown. But the lack of clarity on the parking and circulation was really the key issue that I think the town needs to see more on that.
Is the second one you have basically similar in drawing, but change that bathroom area or not? Because I
Yes, and you
basically
provided us with-
crossed out that area. I know it's, I don't know if that will suffice. If it doesn't, then I have to call the architect and them, redraw it, without the bathrooms in it. So it'd be an empty space instead of, bathrooms. So I guess
yeah.
I would need to know if I would have to do that.
Well, we had the floor plans for the building. So we have two two plan layouts that show the entire site and kind of where your buildings are and the
Right.
landscaping and so on. I'll just pull those up really quick here if I may. So here's one that we had with the hand drawn that shows the plantings. This might be a little bit illegible, so sometimes when it's scanned or if these are older documents, they can be a little difficult to read. This one showed a dumpster up on towards the front of the wedding barn that would be on the northwest corner, but my understanding is Mr. Meyer is actually proposing to have it tucked behind the garage. So this other one site plan that had been
Right.
prepared by an architect had a different location.
I think it's a better place as far as visibility. People won't see it then.
Yeah,
We did have the Wisconsin State Electric Company come in and take out the ungodly huge transformer that was in front of the barn and got it down to a manageable size. It's a lot smaller. It's like a third of the size. So, but that would have been that area on the original drawing. And I think it's a bad spot.
okay. So yeah, don't have any concern with that location, but think at the end of the day, the town would need to see one site plan that just pulls it all together for making it clear what would be requested. As far as the floor plan of the building, this does show with hand markup what they're proposing to change as far as converting bathroom space to food. This actually says food prep, but my understanding is it would not actually be food prep, but
That's correct.
catering staging space.
Yeah,
That
there's
matters
no,
from a building.
no prep, no kitchen. It's just brought in and served. That would be like a service area. They set up their tables and at my daughter's wedding and went from that section, that area.
Yeah, and so this was noted previously, but also during this process that they had previously received some state approval of their plans for the building. But those expire, as I understand it, after 6 months. So regardless of what was proposed or if there are changes, they would need to get a fresh state approval of plans. So the town would be looking for a set of plans that has, state approval on them to move ahead with the modified floor plan.
Are they always a 6-month expiration?
The building
Um,
inspector, is that?
I know ours said, I misread it when I talked to Brian originally. I thought it was 20, or I thought it was 8 of 21. So I'm like, oh, we have like a month. But it was 8 of 20. So I guess if it's 6 months, then technically I should get them like next year. I mean, the pattern doesn't, and I'm new to business and new to starting stuff, but the pattern of it doesn't make sense to me to get it, pay for it, all the money it costs, and then, in our case is a little bit different, but it did expire, So they told me it's not a huge thing to get it updated. It's $150. Obviously, my architect's gonna be more than that, but he has to do the paperwork. They won't let from what I understand, won't let a layperson like me just fill out paperwork like I'd like to and send it in and save myself some money, but I apparently can't. So I guess I don't know if you can ask the state to, for a year, because we'd like to, it's not gonna be over, it's a part-time business. It's just in the summers.
You have to talk to the state about that, unfortunately.
Okay,
And we don't need the state approved stamp plans like at this time as part of this process, but I don't know if the state would accept like hand-drawn modifications to their plans. That's the kind of thing where you just need to see that this stuff is actually being worked through and then it.
I don't,
understand
yeah,
why
I
you
didn't
wanna
ask
get
them
town
that. I
approval
just
for-
knew that it was expired and, we'd have to get it updated. I didn't ask him about this date thing. That would have been a good idea. I just didn't think of it at the time.
Yep. So for site lighting, I know you're pulling together that information when you're requesting a conditional use permit approval for a business operation. Lighting is a pretty important aspect to review, so that is important to have in a.
And I can't remember what they're called. It had a weird name.
Photometric.
Yeah, something like that. That was handed in back in 19. And I know it had all them little bitty numbers on it and all that, all over. So, that we have, we just don't know what the physical light's gonna look like. I mean, my electrician said, the ones he put in are maybe $15. The ones that have to be put in are like 150 a pop. So, it's a cost that we gotta eat. So, like everybody else does who has a business. So.
So that was one piece of it. I did mention the parking, just to clarify on that, the zoning ordinance for off-street parking does require I think as you're all aware, a certain number of spaces for different types of operations, but it also specifies that all of the off-street parking spaces have to be within 500 feet of the principal use. I think you could make a case either way, whether we're talking boundary of the property versus the barn, but in either case that isn't currently working for what they're proposing. They had two off-site places that apparently had agreed to share parking with you. One would be the Gospel Fellowship Church on Howard Lane. The other is Color Inc. in Sussex. But another piece of that, so those are both more than 500 feet away, which the zoning code doesn't actually allow. You could do on-site parking. That was explored previously when they came forward with their proposal, but that the DOT, in order for them to have on-site parking for the number of people, this is proposed to have 150 person capacity. They would have required some turn lanes be constructed on Highway 164. And my
Not turn
understanding is
lanes.
that's cost prohibitive.
Turn lanes would have been for the Amish style grocery store we originally looked at doing. It was about 80 grand. For this one, they explained it instead of customers trickling in. It's more concentrated in a 2-hour period, people drive in, drive out. They wanted a southbound passing lane on State Highway 164, so that was like 200,000 to 300,000 was the estimate, which is.
This is the key provision of this essentially, because if our zoning code doesn't allow parking more than 500 feet away and you aren't going to pay for a turn lane or parking on the property, none of the rest of this really
Sticky wicket,
matters.
yeah.
When was this passed, can I ask? Because was this in that last year and a half?
No, I'm not aware of it being a recent change. We'd have to look up an older version of the ordinance, but I
Mhm.
don't recall.
Am I
that
able
being
to
modified.
recoup a bunch of my money that I spent for meetings and investment and we originally were told, I thought it was, obviously it was okayed. So had we opened it, you're saying you would have shut us down this year because of that ordinance?
We don't know what exactly happened a couple of years ago. I know that, I will say the parking requirements in the Lisbon ordinance are outdated. So I don't think they've been updated recently because of that, because the minimum parking requirements are very high. And I do recommend that get updated as soon as feasible for the town, because it poses challenges for basically every business applicant who comes forward. But that's a larger matter. The 500-foot rule is just one that it's possible it was missed. I don't really know, how to speak to that. It seemed like it, but based on the meeting minutes that I read, it looked like it was seemed to be reasonable, but I can understand that from a personal standpoint, but when I look at the ordinance, I can't see a way around what the code says. And so that's something where Lisbon is really trying to be very on top of what the ordinance says, and the zoning code is a very thick one. And, as the community grows, like I said, we have some new staff. I'm a new planner for the town starting in 2020. So when I look at the ordinance, that's just what I see it says. And so I have to carry that forward to the meeting. And I realize that is an uncomfortable thing to be discussing now after you've gone through the process once. But
And there's no way, we are bound by the zoning code.
you are, so unless you modify the zoning code and that requirements and
As the zoning code reads right now, we cannot approve.
correct.
And Dave, whether it was missed at the last conditional use or not, that conditional use did expire. So we are under the new one.
Yeah.
So we have to, any argument left on that, unfortunately, is something we won't even be discussing here at this point. But does he have can you go through the zoning board of appeals? Or is this just something you just can't, there's
They
nothing to
could,
do
but I
here?
think based on the area they have on site, they've got
They're not going to be able to show a hardship under the legal
they have
standard.
the
of
Right.
space for it, yeah.
Yeah, you can't
So-
use monetary as a reason
Yeah,
for
just because
hardship,
it
and you
costs
could
money or-
rectify it throwing money at this problem, essentially.
Correct. So I don't see any issue with the property that would make it impossible to provide on-site parking. That's the challenge there. And I know that they've approached the adjacent golf course, explored that option of using either for access or for parking, and that it seemed like that didn't prove possible, although it would be a good solution in my view to this, if something there could be worked out, but that's outside of our control. Yes, I think the parking is the key thing. Also the question for the town on just the bathrooms and would you allow a business barn venue to operate on portable toilets? Sounds like you do have the choice there. Your zoning code says it has to comply with, any county sanitary regulations.
I do at least, if I could, finish some of what I was gonna say. I did speak with, like you mentioned earlier, Joe Gibbs from the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services last Monday. He advised that the bathroom issue is the town of Lisbon's to deal with. It's not DSPS. There are obviously numerous other places in the area that have portable bathrooms, Bass's being one of them. The Copula Wedding Venue in Oconomowoc has them. Schuster's Wedding Barn in Cambridge has them. Villa Boancontro in Fort Atkinson has them, as well as Songbird Hills Golf Course, which surrounds our property. There was one just south of our property, right up by the road, just last week. I took a picture of it. And there's two of them that sit year round, right at our property line to the east. They're not on our property, they're, on the other side of the fence, but, so, that aspect, I guess, they're out there. It's not like it's a new concept for wedding venues that, nobody has portables. Another thing I was just gonna mention, obviously my wife and I are trying to make $1 million. We're just, we'd love to have other people enjoy our 1905 barn, just like we do. As well as, the surrounding community. We're only planning on having 3, sometimes maybe 4 weddings per month, May through October. Obviously, the town has enjoyed our improvements, or at least noticed the improvements that I've been doing with the property, because my assessment went up 35%. And I know I called, like probably a lot of people did as well, that service that we have. I was looking up the mill rate. I think it's $23.10 a thousand. Is that, no? What is it?
Wish.
It's higher?
It's much lower.
Okay.
Much lower.
Is it like 2.3 then? Did I
But
miss
there's different
decimal?
expenses, but
Okay.
no matter what, but I mean, your
Either way.
assessment is a whole different discussion. But
Right, and I look at that as it's probably gonna be increased. And, taxes, so we'd like to do this venue to assist with that. And obviously, if we would get the venue, business, taxes are gonna go up there as well, so
So,
it would help with that,
but none of this addresses the parking issue.
right?
So as our code is written, no one on this board can vote for this and say yes.
And it
It doesn't
couldn't,
matter if our heart tells us we want to or not,
okay,
we can't. Because as you applied, the code says you have to have parking within 500 feet, and you don't have a plan for that right now. Correct, John?
That's correct.
and it was that way in 2019 as well, correct?
Could be, but it doesn't matter because we are at where we're at now.
True,
Your conditional use you applied for in 2019 expired. You have a new conditional use in front of us right now. So what we're looking at is, can you get any kind of agreement with someone to have parking within 500 feet or put the parking on your facility?
I have a state highway in front of that, that. And,
To keep, we're recording, so if you wouldn't mind keeping the mic on.
there's a state highway in front of our property. There's a golf course all the way around it. So obviously our one option would be the golf course. We asked Robin when we were going through this before. This was when her father was alive. She had said no. My wife actually cuts her hair in our small salon in our house. And I'm not gonna ask her again.
Right, so
So
what about parking on site? I know you have to put improvements outside.
I'd love to park on site. It worked out well for my daughter's wedding. We had a little rain, but heavy rain would not be good. I mean, you're parking on grass, so the state
And code would
won't
require
allow
you
it
to have a-
because of
You have
the
to-
passing lane.
You have to put a parking lot in.
It'd have to be paved. The code doesn't allow gravel either.
You'd have to be a paved parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to do that to my property. It's too nice looking the way it is, so I would not want blacktop up there. I mean, I don't know if you've driven by it, but we've done a lot of work to it. We really have. And, we love it more and more that we keep doing it, so. It's just, it would be nice to get back some of our investment, so. And I'm hoping with the new assessment, we don't get taxed out of our property and have to move, so. Keep
Well,
my
we can
fingers crossed
explain-
on that.
We can explain the assessment later, because I don't know if you completely understand how that all works, but we could help you with that. It's not as bad as what I think you think it is. So
Yeah, I was looking at like $2,443 increase, but
I don't,
I hope not.
well, we can
Anyway,
talk about
I-
that outside of here, but
Right, so is there anything the board can do? You're saying they can't whatsoever?
we cannot go against our own zoning code. So as the code is currently written, there's nothing we can do, correct? I'm getting this
Right,
correct,
and-
John, and
And
staff.
based on where we're at with the application, I don't feel that staff can recommend approval action at this time because the parking is just unresolved. Some of the other things might be more minor, you know, and if you were open to conditional approval, you could, but the parking is such a big, it's pretty black and white. I don't see any wiggle room in the ordinance.
Right. And that's why I'm, even with the bathrooms, there's not a point to sit here and discuss it, because if we can't get to the point of having people to use the bathrooms, you're not bringing
I
bathrooms.
guess at this point, whatever, if it doesn't happen, but I would like to discuss it now because it saves me time in the future coming back here and spending more money to talk about it again.
Okay.
So
Portable bathrooms.
just be honest about it. Is it a possibility or is it no way?
Do you want to hear from staff
My-
first?
Oh.
Kathy has some strong feelings and others.
Yes, doesn't work. So, my.
Right now.
There it is. So my thoughts on portable bathrooms. We are working really hard to incorporate. We're not as rural as some of the areas that you may have spoken about. I believe that the first time you came in, we
I'm
approved
fairly
with-
rural out there, just to let you know.
we approved to, the board approved the condition, the barn with the thought of having sanitation. And I believe that in my personal opinion is that sanitation is necessary, not portable. There's also the one that you mentioned in the town of Oconomowoc. They have portable toilets that are there the whole time. It's not done by the,
And that would be fine.
it's not, the venue pays for those. It's not done by the
service.
renters
Right.
making a decision on what type of bathroom that they'd like to have.
Right.
I believe
All of them I
in
mentioned
our-
have that.
In our area, we should be looking at businesses that have inside bathrooms.
Are there any businesses that have outside bathrooms allowed that you know besides Songbird Hills? I mean, I know Songbird Hills has a bathroom inside, obviously.
Right, they have bathrooms
Which,
inside.
I mean, we
and-
do two on our property. The one that would be used for my wife's salon, which is part of this plan as well. It's only one, but
Right,
obviously
I-
it couldn't service 150 people, but
I think Songbird has these out in the golf course, so, but they have their full facility in their
Right.
building. So these are just to make it easier for the golfer that's way out in the course. But I don't believe, I've spoken to staff, I don't believe we have a business in the town that purely runs off of portable bathrooms. And although your wife has a public restroom, this is a completely separate business. And you would need bathrooms, in my opinion.
Anything else from staff?
Well, not on the bathrooms, but on the parking, I do have a comment. I don't know if you want it now, Mr. Chairman, or any site off of premise, the 500 feet, you have to show that that business has extra parking that they can allow him to use. So I'm not even sure the golf course, if they're running a convention center and events, has enough parking to even use them. So I don't want him to go down that route until he finds out whether or not I am quite confident, I don't want to say this with certainty, we haven't analyzed it. I really question whether the church, because churches require so much parking. And it doesn't matter that he uses it at a different time or might be using, we have nothing in our code that would allow you to borrow parking from another business unless that business has excess parking. And I am very confident or quite confident the one in Sussex does not have excess parking. So I don't think that, not only wasn't it analyzed correctly under the code, I'm not even sure it was analyzed that those facilities even had extra parking if it could have been more than 500 feet away.
Can you define excess parking?
Sure, if the church requires 300 parking spaces per our code and they have 400, then they have 100 extra parking that they could allow someone within 500 feet to use. But if they only have 300 parking spaces, they can't give any parking away, even though they only use it for 2 hours on a Sunday. The code doesn't allow you to have that kind of shared parking. I only know of one code of the 60 municipalities that we represent that allows some form of shared parking if you can show that it's totally different uses, totally different times. And that's very rare that I've ever seen a code have that. I'm not saying you couldn't write it, but who knows that they have a wedding the same time the church has a funeral, we don't have enough parking. And that defeats the whole purpose of having the parking ordinance. So I think it'll be very difficult to show, using shared parking is much more difficult than it sounds. And I just wanted to make that point.
They have 101 spots. And Color Inc. is not open at night when we would be doing these.
That wouldn't matter. The code doesn't allow you to use Color Inc.'s parking unless they have extra parking, regardless of whether they're open or not. I'm just telling you, that's the law. So.
That
and I
would
don't
have been
how
nice
many
to
the
know in
church needs.
2019.
Pardon?
I said it would have been nice to know in 2019, but obviously it's too late.
So that's the only comment I wanted to add that we haven't mentioned so far. Mr. Chairman. Thank you. for the
Also,
opportunity.
the point you made about Songbird Hills, you're not correct in the way you explained it. It wouldn't be using their parking. It would have been additional parking that we would have provided in the front of our property, which is kind of what I just said. I don't want to put blacktop on the front acre of my property because I think it would look like crap. So we would have provided our own parking. They would have been able to use it during special events. She said Robin doesn't use her catering service that much. She makes her money obviously off of golfers, and they wouldn't need the extra 50 to 80 spaces that we offered. We would have taken down the trees on the north portion of our property, put a little walkway through, driveway through there. I didn't like what the state said about, we'd have to shut our regular driveway down, put stuff in front of it. And then that would be my wife and our family's driveway to get in, which it doesn't work. You got golfers getting ready to go golf. I don't want to be driving by them. And I understand Robin's liability of people driving through, if it's wedding stuff, even though it's obviously mostly at night, but the time they would be coming in is daylight, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And I understand why she said no. I mean, I offered her extra spaces and $10,000 cash extra. So I'm not gonna ask her again, and I thought the county told me it had to be a hard surface. I didn't know it had to be blacktop. It's similar to what we ran into in Cedarburg when we looked at a place to do the store, but I didn't realize that as well. There's no variance for that. It has to be blacktop.
If it helps you, David, just to clarify, the code does give some options, but for your future planning, if you're pursuing this, is
How
the
can we?
well, surfacing, if you have more than 4 vehicles that have to be surfaced and well-maintained in a dustless condition. It can be either porous or pervious or impervious surfaces, such as bituminous asphalt or blacktop, cement concrete, brick pavers, packed or recycled asphalt or other surface as approved by the town engineer, but not dirt, grass, gravel, or stone. So it leaves you some options there, but it is very clear about,
Yeah,
What wouldn't
the
fly
guy
right
who
now?
put in my $30,000 worth of landscape, we talked about that. It would have been like regurgitated blacktop or something, but like I said, I didn't want that to, I didn't want it to be like that. I want the place to look nice. I mean, we want to enjoy it, and I don't want blacktop in front of our property.
Bathroom issue, Jeff.
Actually, I gone to several, I think probably half a dozen barn weddings in and around Wisconsin, and I don't think there was one that had any indoor toilets. Seems to be just the way they operate. Seems to be the, the standard.
And we know we're different. I mean, we knew that when we brought it forward. There are a lot of them that do have it, been to some that have them, but you're right. A lot of them, allow outdoor bathrooms, and obviously vast majority of them are up north, but the ones I mentioned, I wanted to keep around here for, sake of being close. But obviously there are towns, cities, villages, wherever they are allowing, they're making variances for it. So.
I don't have any particular objection to that. But then I'm a slob too.
Strike
Like
that,
that.
strike that. Eliminate that last comment. I don't think you are.
Ed, your thoughts?
My thoughts, Mr. Meyer, there's dreams and there's reality, there's practicality and there's idealism. And I think that's what you're running into with this whole thing from the beginning, what you wanted to do with your property. You're obviously on an extremely busy highway that's getting busier by the year. So the state tells us things that we don't like to hear, but we have to abide by them. I would not, given the interest and the passion you have about this, but I think in some ways, quite frankly, sir, there's been some possibly tripping up over the practicality of what you wanted to do with the site, whether it was a shop or whether it was a wedding event barn. You've heard discussion this evening about the parking, and unfortunately it is what it is. I would, in this region, I would unfortunately have to differ from my colleague to the left. I would, because you have a trade-off, whether or not you want food preparation or bathrooms, they're both expensive. We understand that. There's no one seated here
And my wife
tonight.
said, make sure we don't say preparation because it's a food, it's just service. It's
Yeah,
not-
well,
but
it
anyway,
simply would
doesn't matter. I
be,
know what you're saying.
yeah, it's simply where food would be brought in. In other words, do we have a full kitchen or do we have bathrooms? Strike the full kitchen, and I would certainly be, in terms of wedding venues in this immediate area, since what's happening in our community, we are growing by leaps and bounds. Hence, our expectations are getting higher. We're no longer a rural community. Unfortunately, I would lean on the opposite of Commissioner to my left and request that you have permanent bathrooms. I know there's portable units. We've all seen that at big festivals, etc. But for wedding venues,
So you've
no.
just changed your mind from 2 years ago? You were one of the
No,
ones that
no.
suggested it. There were one or two there were 2 board members that suggested it. Why don't you do that? At that time, I was in a little different thinking, and I wanted indoor bathrooms, just personally, but I know you were one of the ones, but if you change your mind on it, I understand.
No, well,
Nothing I can do about it, so.
I'm sorry, I do not remember. Obviously, we are loaded with facts and figures here. I don't remember, being in that situation, but I would certainly want to see you have indoor bathrooms. And then on the, not the food prep, I'm sorry, just a food area where the food could be kept warm.
And that we can move if I had to put
as-
bathrooms in,
as-
but obviously it's for how much money that I put into it to get it ready for my daughter's wedding, just doing all the inside work and stuff, it would be a savings to have the outdoor bathrooms for us. Obviously, that's
Well, certainly
one
the
of the
out-
reasons that
Portable
and having an
bathrooms.
extra space inside, that's a big plus as well. but-
Portable bathrooms would be less expensive. We all understand that. But then getting back to what the chairman has said, what the attorney has said, and what the town planner has said, the parking issue is we don't have flexibility here. So
So I got
Anyway, I
two
would,
nays and one yay. Okay,
Well, we're
Brian.
discussing mainly the
Bathrooms,
bathrooms.
correct.
right now, but
well, yes, I would, as I've said, I would very much not be in favor of porta potties or outdoor bathroom facilities.
All right.
They have to be an indoor bathroom.
Brian, your thoughts?
I'm not necessarily a fan of the porta potties, but I do think that you should have indoor bathrooms, at least the minimum. And then you can have supplemental portable bathrooms, like, just like Songbird does. Songbird has the outdoor porta potties that you see are probably portable bathroom or supplemental to what's inside. Because if you've got 100 golfers at one time, maybe on 18 holes, you can't have them driving back and forth. So I mean, I would like to see indoor bathrooms with maybe some supplemental if you felt the need, depending on the size of the wedding.
No, I mean, we built the bathrooms for that amount of people, so we wouldn't need supplementals at that point. If there was a supplemental, they could go in the house, I mean, that would be an extra bathroom that we would have had, so.
Becky?
I am not a fan of portable toilets, but if the people who rent your place don't care, then I don't see any reason that you couldn't have them. I mean, they're the ones that are going to be using them, so.
So you have permanent wedding barns, and you have a barn that's being used for a wedding. And I guess what I'm looking at with the bathrooms, I didn't realize how nice some of these bathrooms are. In fact, I just found out the other day. There are like really nice trailers that are nicer than most bathrooms that people have in their homes. So wasn't aware of that. Figured that out now.
I can show you a picture one, but.
I got one pulled up on my screen. So the thing is the difference is if you're establishing a business that's set up to have, it's going to be a wedding barn, that is its intended purpose. Should we require you to have bathrooms on site for that intended purpose versus I have a barn, somebody wants to hold a wedding and we're going to bring in portable toilets to have it. And that's kind of the question that goes back and forth on that. And I guess if it's going to be a permanent business, I would like to see toilets there. I do recognize the fact that these costs are racking up for you. I mean, I think, I used to hang out on this property when I was a teenager, so I'm very familiar with it. And when you have a dream, you want to be able to exercise that dream. The problem is the toilets to me aren't even the issue at this point. It's the parking. So if I had to make the judgment on the toilets, I guess I don't know which way I would go at this point in time. We also have 2 plan commission members that aren't here at this point
All right,
tonight that are out, but I do recognize the fact that there are very nice portable bathrooms. That's not the argument I'm arguing with myself right now about. It's whether or not a permanent business should definitely have toilets on site like this. If you can follow where I'm going with that, because this is the intent. I mean, when this all started out with the barn, it was going to be a business.
mm-hmm.
Did you guys ever open that business or no?
No,
No,
No.
because I mean, you put a sizable addition on there
right.
with the intent of
weren't-
having a business there.
When we put it on, we weren't thinking of this, so.
But I mean, it just.
I mean, and I think it's pretty obvious, had we been thinking of this, I mean, I want to be honest with the town, and I have been with 12-inch cookies that I had to dig up for $3,300 to put 20-inch cookies underneath the beams. I probably could have said, like some people may just say, hey, there's 20-inch cookies under there, and I wouldn't have had an excavator have to dig them up for $3,300, but no, he dug them up, he put them under there, just in case at that point, we were still gonna do this. And then, like I said, about 5 months ago, we said, screw it. And daughter's wedding went well, and we thought we'd try it again. I guess my question would be, had we been open, so we would be shut down then, according to the attorney's interpretation of the,
The thing is
the
it didn't
town's thing?
It didn't happen, so we don't have to talk about that end of it. I don't know what to tell you about that. It's a discussion we can have later, but it didn't happen, so.
Right, well, obviously, I wouldn't have paid tens of thousands of more dollars to do any more work on my property.
so,
Some of it I would have had to do because, we wanted to look nice for the daughter's wedding, but.
We are where we are right now.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
right, well, we'll need a motion on each one of these items. So we have the conditional use permit that is up. I would make a motion to deny the conditional use permit for David and Kim Meyer for Heartland Weddings and Events. Is there a second?
Second, Mr.
Second by
Chairman.
Ed Nelson.
We need to put the reason in there for failure to meet these ordinance requirements.
Sure. The inability to meet the parking requirement as per the Lisbon code is my reason for voting against the conditional use permit. Ed Nelson, you're okay with that?
With the change, Mr. Chairman, yes.
Okay. All right, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 to deny the conditional use permit. Do we have to vote on the site plan and plan of operation at that point, being you can't have it without the conditional use?
Sort of moot, but you could deny it because the conditional use permit was not.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff Boucher. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye to deny. Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 to deny. All right, item C, discussion necessary action regarding amendments to the town's zoning code in particular, but not limited to section 5 signs and subsequent incorporation of sign related regulations in the Lisbon's Code of Ordinances and recommendation of the town board of the same.
Oh, let's talk about
Right.
All right, so we covered some of this in the public hearing portion. I guess I already presented the rundown of the comments in the staff report.
Any questions?
Looking for
There was-
questions and feedback?
Can you just list the items you want to particular?
Yes.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, sorry, a lot has happened since then. I mentioned that the changes, and those are included in red lines in the packet. Things I would like feedback on that would help us just getting this buttoned up for the next meeting would be, so currently your sign code defines 4 different types of ground mounted signs. There's pole signs, which are defined, but are not actually allowed in any of the zoning districts because that table matrix with the different districts and sign types is really the key to seeing which types of signs are allowed where. I added that to the definition to make that a little clearer. Pedestal signs is the second type. Those are with, these are all defined based on the width of the base in relation to the sign face, which, may not work for every sign, but that is a fairly common way to describe these. So a pedestal sign would have less than 30%, the base being less than 30% the width of the sign face. So sort of skinny, but not quite as skinny as a pole or a pylon sign. Third type of sign is a ground sign that's defined as, oh, excuse me. That's why it gets confusing. Pedestal sign, I believe, has 30 to 50% width. A ground sign has 50 to 75% width base. And a monument sign would have a base that's more than 75% the width of the sign face. I find that a little bit complex, so I would suggest, if you would like this change, we could have the definition of ground signs cover all of these types of signs because they're mounted on the ground. I think that's more common. And just redefine to have just 2 types of permitted sign types, one being pedestal signs with a base less than 50%, less than half the width of a sign, and a monument sign, which would be wider, more than 50% the width of the sign.
Does that bring us more into compliance with other communities, like what they're doing? Compliance with more what they do?
I will be honest, I haven't re-reviewed other communities' ordinances on the signs for this. I can certainly do that before the next meeting. This was drafted based on a review of other community signage ordinances. My personal preference is always to try to simplify for the community if it can meet your needs, and especially if you have flexibility granted for the commission to make decisions on signs, why not make it easier to read and interpret? Since you have the opportunity, but
We probably do want to take them each at a time here.
Sure.
So the feeling on that, so we've got the 3 different ones going to 2, just being the pedestal and the monument, and then adopting the 50 to 75% is what you were.
yes.
Joe? Chairman?
Fine.
I just have a question, Rachel. What about, would what would Quick Trip sign look like? Would that be considered a pole sign? Because I don't, or would that be a monument sign? I don't
I
want to
think
take
they
out a
would.
sign if we're gonna need it in the future, or if we currently have it somewhere in our town.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think they're, I'm trying to remember what the one on Silver Spring looks like. I'd have to pull that up again. But I think that would be a monument sign.
This isn't
I
it a
can
pole
speak
going
based on the
to that. I do not believe that Sussex allows new pole signs, and their quick trip signs were allowed.
Okay,
So, I mean, we'll compare that,
okay.
and I assume that you would want to be comparable. So if Rachel pulls Sussex's code and clarifies with them that the signs were allowed,
Yep.
I would think that would be the requirement. But
Okay,
if you know Petro Pantry, we have two pole signs left to the best of my knowledge in Sussex. One is on Silver Spring Petro Pantry, and one is Carlson's old auto dealership right on the main street. A couple, not Carlson's anymore. I'm
Right.
dating myself. He's 3 or 4
Chuck's.
owners prior, but that are the only two pole signs that I'm aware of that are left. I think Clark's is gone. I think when they redid the corner, Clark had one too, but very few pole signs left in Sussex because they've been zoned out many, many years ago, and as they replace them, you know, they took. So,
okay. I just wanted to make sure we weren't,
no, it's a great point, you know. Now, Silver Spring may have a legal non-conforming pole sign, you know, or a sign that would not be allowed, but that doesn't mean they don't get to keep them. All kinds of laws on legal non-conforming signs and when you can require them to be removed or not removed. The state and feds have stepped in and really worked on that.
Yes, and something that would be especially helpful, I would say that I was kind of marginally involved when the sign code was being updated, so I recall the discussions a little bit, but I had a colleague really doing the bulk of the work. One thing we did not do is go around town and actually take pictures and inventory all the signs. I mean, that's something that, and currently I don't believe there's any budget for me to do that type of effort, but that I think would be very helpful to know. Just, that's a reality check, right? Does your code actually make sense for what's out there on the ground in Lisbon? I've certainly spent some time driving around, but I feel like inevitably with every community sign code I've ever dealt with, they can be, I feel like they're complex to administer, and you're always going to find a sign proposal that doesn't meet code. And so I think the best solution to this is what we're building in with the, I just wrote it as complete flexibility for the plan commission because it won't be in your zoning code. And why not? If you think the sign makes sense, if you feel like it's, you know, suitable, meets the other criteria in the ordinance, or if you feel like it has a good basis to waiver from those standards, you can still approve it. I think that provides you a sound basis unless the town attorney or others feel otherwise.
thank you.
So. Guess we're back where we're at as far as how does the commission feel? Jeff?
KISS, keep it simple.
Yep.
I won't say the less S.
Keep it simple, Sonny.
Yeah, right.
Ed?
Wow, how do I follow that? Mr. Chairman, you recommend, I think of our two most urbanized communities that border us, Pewaukee and Menominee Falls. I have no idea what their sign codes are. Are the previous signs that are in our town, are they grandfathered in? They are, pretty much, okay. So this would apply to future signs. So if, let's say,
Yes.
Quick Trip is going to build or add a new station off on Silver Spring, which is south of me. So they will take down the old sign and put in a new one?
Not necessarily. Most communities allow you to reface the existing sign, even if the existing sign is legal non-conforming.
Yeah, because the sign that's in there is from a previous gas station operation, and I believe it is a pole. I mean, they updated it. They made it look nicer, but it's still supported by, I believe, 2 steel poles. Now I forgot what I wanted to say. How unusual.
We'll come back to you.
I
Well,
would,
we can check Menominee Falls and Harlan to see whether they allow pole signs. That's a very simple check. That's just an online check. And if we find out that everybody around us doesn't allow pole signs and they're still managed to get businesses and growth and things, it would seem to us as a staff that that's what we'd be coming back and recommending to you.
Okay, I would say, obviously, as we have become further urbanized, pole signs are going out and foundation signs are coming in.
Yeah.
And they're either stone or brick. And yes, they look nicer. Because doesn't this, Mr. Chairman, doesn't this go back to the Hallquist sign that has now become, of course, part of Land and Stone Products? That was formerly a restaurant that was on that of Lisbon and,
Yeah,
yeah,
yes, it is.
it is. And that.
Joe Aliotta's thing.
Yeah, that caused a little bit of controversy. We've talked about that in the past in our meetings. I would certainly be in favor of going towards the nicer looking quote foundation signs. I know they're more expensive, but and I don't know what the maintenance scenarios are, but they just look a lot better than the pole signs from the, well, 70s and 80s, realistically. That's where I am.
Brian?
And should I respond to that question, Mr. Chairman? I did find in the ordinance, this is on page 18 of the red line code, existing signs. The way it's currently written, it says they would become non-conforming upon adoption of this ordinance. If the existing signs which become non-conforming shall not be reconstructed, remodeled, relocated, or altered in any way unless such action will make the sign conforming in all respects to this ordinance. It says normal maintenance is permitted, but it doesn't specify refacing, and I think if that is something you want to specify, I would add that word in there. Because that is reasonable unless you feel like you want to, if
Well-
someone has a pole sign and they want to reface it and you want the ability to have
Yeah,
them
I
tear it down.
certainly possibly updating it, Rachel, but I'm not trying to make it more expensive for the owner.
I mean, if,
Unless you're
Honestly,
offended
if-
by existing pole signs, I don't think you want to,
right, I mean, for me personally, our surrounding communities, I think are doing pretty good with them.
yeah.
I mean, if Sussex is doing something with them, I'd look, see what their language is and.
Okay.
Yes, I forgot to mention Sussex. I obviously should not have not mentioned Sussex, since we surround that community.
So in the section that you just mentioned, Rachel, you read through the that paragraph. You said normal maintenance is permitted.
Mhm.
Would the board in that area say it would include refacing? Or is the board in the opinion that if you have to reface your sign, that you have to get a monument sign?
Does everybody go with the refacing signs? Anybody have an issue? Jeff's good. Ed,
No,
you're good. Brian, Becky,
Yeah,
we're good with refacing.
okay.
Well, how do you feel about it in general, Brian?
I would prefer the ground signs overall for any new sign.
Becky?
I agree with Jeff. The easier, the better.
All right, that makes that one.
Kiss.
All right, next issue.
Issue. Easier to discuss here. Any concerns with the sign size regulations? Specifically looking at the table at the back of the ordinance. This is a gut check. Does it make sense to allow pedestal signs 30 feet high in most business districts? That's what your code currently does.
So here's the thing. I don't think any of us are sign experts.
Right.
So
No,
we're gonna be looking for a recommendation
All
on
right.
what we should be looking at. I mean, I don't know. I'll know when I see it.
Yeah, I think I looked at one of the case signs on Highway 164. I bet that's,
Mhm.
might not be 30 feet, but yeah, I don't want to.
I don't want to speak for
Getting
the whole commission here, but I
in
mean,
trouble
it's, I have a hard time visualizing some of this stuff on paper for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
It sounds good on paper sometimes, and then in practicality, you go, what the heck were we thinking?
Yeah, and you go, what? I have the same experience, so it's
So do you want planner to come back with the recommendation of what would be surrounding?
Is everybody okay with that? Coming back with some recommendations of what,
Absolutely.
yes, and I would like to thank you, because that's what I was thinking. Of course, I can jump in there and sound good, but I'm obviously not an expert on signs. I just think of the signs we all see off the interstates. I mean, you know, what do I know?
Yeah, we don't want those.
No, no, I don't want a 3-story,
Close to another check.
4-story sign in our community.
Okay.
Anything else you wanna?
I guess, Rachel, I would point out though, as you've indicated in bullet point number 3, they allow the waivers and modifications if the objective standards are met. So we'll probably come back with as restrictive, maybe a little more restrictive than a one-off, one business that might need something bigger than that. You know, you'd say, well, what about so-and-so? You know, they need a bigger sign. Well, that's what the objective waiver requirements are for. And we'd like to have standards that are more in the norm. And as I said, we can look to the 3 neighboring communities that have been mentioned to see what their sizes are.
Yeah, let's see if there's any language that might help bolster in the event that you want to grant a waiver for signs that would give you coverage and a good rationale to do that. I think that's one thing that would be helpful. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Item D, discussion only regarding future development possibilities on the vacant property known as LSBT 0279.991.001.
You have 2 documents. I brought this forward. I'm in the middle of a discussion with Sussex. The property to the north of this property, which was annexed into Sussex. And then in front of that, north of that is Myers. So you kind of an idea of where this is. The base here is Pewaukee. And all on this side of this property is all C1. So no one can build over here either. So it's the east side of 164 at our border with Pewaukee. Sussex is asking in our discussion if we can document that we are going to give them access to the property above, because the only access to 164 is through the parcel that's actually in Lisbon. The parcel that's in Sussex does not have access to 164 and cannot get it. So one of the things I did was, one of the things, our concerns was to make sure that we're not losing any development ability on this property if we give them the ability to connect the second parcel to 164 through the Lisbon parcel. So I asked the planner to take a look at what possibilities there were on if there was enough area that we could have a road as well as development. And what you're seeing are 2 possible developments. One is all duplexes. I don't know, this might be all single families. And then, so you'd have 6 single families. But since this area is really cut off from the rest of Lisbon, this might be a good place for us to have side-by-sides and maybe a multi-tenant, because it will not affect any of our residents around it. And above it, they are going, that's what Sussex is going to do, is put a multifamily in the front, and then they're going to put actual single families in the back is what they're considering. So the developer or the owner is the owner of both properties. So I'm making the assumption that when Sussex property develops, the Lisbon property would develop at the same time. It would be the same type of development. So I brought it to you before I put it in the agreement that the road, that we could satisfy my concern that the road would not inhibit some development. But I wanted to know if you were also, what your thoughts are about doing some side-by-sides and multifamily, specifically in this area. So it was mostly just so I could get your temperature.
Feelings from the commission?
I have a question on the road. Does that line up to the road to the west?
Yes,
Okay. Makes more sense. In putting in this road, is Sussex willing to pay a portion of that?
the road would be completely paid for by the developer,
Okay. So, because it's residential.
correct? I also asked Sussex if, with this agreement, that this development could get sewer and water as well, because it would be part of the bigger development above it. So it only makes sense that both parcels would have sewer and water, and that would give us the ability to have a multi-tenant building,
Mhm.
which helps with tax revenue and
Yeah.
Sewer and water right across the street.
You have these in kind of a reddish and an orange. What does that mean?
I think the reddish one is the multifamily, or I'm sorry, the multi-tenant.
It's like a quad or
Area.
4-unit building.
And the goldenrod is the side by side, and this isn't exactly what someone's putting in. I just wanted to give you some kind of an idea of what
Right.
kind of development could go there. And to see if you would be, if that would be an area that we could consider some multi-tenant and side by sides.
How many acres does this comprise that's buildable?
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I don't. It's a 16.4 acre site,
It's like about 4.
4.9 of developable.
4.9.
Okay.
Yeah.
4 acres, yeah.
So of the 16.4, 4.9 is developable. The rest is all conservancy. So with the proper setbacks, these both show a trail also that that would allow some public trails to kind of enjoy the conservancy in the back, since they're going to be sitting on top of a very busy highway.
As I recall, that's kind of low. It goes down
Yeah.
from the highway, does it not?
Yes,
Does that create any problems in terms of particularly providing sewer and water service to that, because it's much lower than the surrounding area?
A good question. I think it would depend on where the either existing or planned sewer lines would be. I didn't have that information when we put together the sketches, so
Okay, I'm
I have
just
to think
I
through
think that
that.
would be
Just don't wanna make
something
it-
that,
pie in the sky that we can't do.
right. Well, and the idea is, why I brought it to you was just to find out, would you consider this area for multi-tenant side-by-sides?
Do you know what the comprehensive plan indicates for this?
Well, we're in the middle of developing or changing the comprehensive plan, and we would address that with the
Do
map
you know what the
change.
existing one?
Just checking it
I
right
think,
now.
oh, is he? Okay. It might be,
So that 5-acre density.
yeah, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's at A5.
Okay.
Isn't this owned by a individual?
It is,
Showing.
both of them are.
And we're going to tell him what to put on there?
No, we're just going to, what I want to do with the agreement with Sussex is give the highest density so we can get the water and sewer. And if the developer decides that's what they want to do, we're not going to be shut down from having development on this property if the developer wants to develop the land in Sussex, and now we can't get water in Lisbon, and so, the developer decides to not develop on the Lisbon parcel because he's got a driveway or a road that goes through.
I think the point, Kathy, that needs to be made is the two communities are discussing the 0307 agreement. And Kathy's concerned that we have in there an agreement that you're gonna have road access back and forth. And if we guarantee, the only thing, we wouldn't tell the developer, the owner, how he had to develop it. But
Right.
if he developed it, he has to put a road to the Sussex that abuts the Sussex property.
Which he
Or
would
if he
do.
develops the whole thing is as one
One.
huge complex, they would be private roads, but
Right.
if it were to be public road, it has to abut the Sussex property. And for that, if Lisbon would guarantee that to Sussex, they're asking Sussex to guarantee the sewer and water to the Lisbon portion. So
Right.
it's a negotiation. It's just conscientious, good planning, I think. And I take no position on how it gets resolved, obviously, but I think that's the point that maybe we didn't make clear enough is that this is to be put in the 0307, of the
Okay.
0307 agreement, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
And as part of that, you know, Sussex, of course, consistent, and this isn't gonna, would say, well, what are you thinking about putting there? And we'll tell you what we're thinking of putting
Right.
here. And that's not to say that the property owner has to do that, but at least there'd be consistency. If
Correct.
you said absolutely because Seven Stones is across the street, we absolutely wouldn't want anything but single family there. We know what those people feel. Am I in the right corner? Seven Stones right there.
Yes.
You know, and all the issues, you know, that's what they needed to know. And that's
Okay.
why really what we're here to get your input. The comp plan may have to be amended. It's a great question, but Kathy's just looking for density, I
right.
think, more than anything. at this
That's
point.
correct.
Could it fit? Yeah.
I want to
So-
make sure that we can get this road through without it inhibiting the usefulness of this land for
Right.
Lisbon.
She's, I mean, the density is part of the issue. Are you
Yeah.
okay with multifamily?
I
condominium?
am in favor of that, yes, actually.
Okay. Ed?
Now that I know where it is, just south of Myers on 164 and
Mhm.
Seven Stones is across the other side of 74. There's also some very high-end condos across from this site, across from
correct.
Myers.
Mhm.
Having said that, I would be in favor of the, now, come on. Not the multifamily, but the
Duplexes
second,
Side by side.
the side by side. I think that there would be an inordinate amount of opposition, and I would not blame the homeowners in Seven Stones or those condos. I looked at those at one point. I know they're very high end and very pricey. Hence, I would go for the second picture, not the first, the one that's
Yes.
second down.
Okay.
And I realize, yeah, there's not a lot of developable land there, because being just south of Myers when Myers put in their store, they excavated quite a bit. There's a large hill there, and they dug into that hill and moved tons of earth. So there's a very steep drop off. Come on, Ed, north to south. So the road we're seeing at the top, Kathy, where,
You connect with that road by Myers.
by Myers?
There's a road to the east of Myers there.
Okay, Now-
Executive,
Would eventually-
yes,
executive
because
drive.
Can you see the
obviously,
picture? Here's Seven Stones.
yeah,
Here's the road to Seven Stones. Here's the property we're talking about. Here's the Sussex property. The road has to go like this,
yes.
okay? And
I
then
agree,
obviously
because-
Go over to Aubrey or
And
go
you can
up,
see them
you
Where
know.
is, isn't Myers the big, right there?
right there.
Yeah.
And you
Okay.
See the road to
And they
the,
own this property too, Myers.
Okay,
But
Yeah.
Sussex, this is the two parcels they're talking about developing. I don't know if Aubrey got brought into it at all or not. No, so it's just this, and most importantly, it's getting the most use out of this, because somebody's got to pay for the road, the developer. So you got to figure out what economically works to allow this road to be built, and then this would be the Sussex.
all right.
and it hooks up to that road to the east of
East of-
Myers.
It comes east of Myers, the Myers
Yeah.
store.
Executive
It
drive.
could, it could. We don't know what the developer is going to,
Yeah.
he could go in and cul-de-sac it for all we know, but
But as you said, there's a big hill here. There was a big
Big.
hill.
There
now
was a
there's
hill,
big drop
now
off.
there's a big drop off. Yeah, so that does create a,
so they might, what
won't-
they might do
That won't
is
be our
do
problem.
something right in.
no,
there.
it won't be our problem.
No.
No.
But, again, I would vibe for the duplex side by side.
Let me respond to that a little bit in that if Kathy, if I understood you correctly, Village of Sussex is thinking of multifamily immediately to the north of this
That's
anyway.
correct. Right in the same, right above that reddish color.
Mhm.
They're looking at doing the exact same thing close to 164 and then tucking away other houses in the back part of it.
Which is one of the reasons I think multifamily makes sense over there. Just wanted to point that.
Yeah, but we're not Sussex.
No, but you were looking at one
development,
development.
right?
No, I understand that.
Oh, I'm all for it because, I think it fits in. I think side by sides would be great. Seven Stones already has sewer and water. Above to the north has sewer and water with Myers. So I don't know what the logistics are of running it here. Maybe it's not as easy as what I think in my head, but I think it would fit in the side by sides with the condos. And Seven Stones, Sussex Seven Stones and Lisbon Seven Stones both have the condos already next to them, so it kind of fits into the area. So I think
So
it's a
are you
great
all-
idea.
Are you, Brian, just so I know, are you for the multi-tenant or just and the side-by-sides or just the side-by-sides?
I could go either way, but I think I'd lean more towards side by side or duplexes.
Okay.
I like the way it's set up. I see nothing wrong with multifamily development as long as it's done tastefully. And the side by sides are things we need in the town.
I like the side by sides.
Okay.
I'm probably the anti.
So I'm gonna bring forward to Sussex to put in the agreement, the side-by-sides then, all side-by-sides. That'll work. Thank you for your input. That'll help, that'll be
Thank you
helpful.
for asking.
All right, item 6, planner report.
Just had, I'm trying to think here. We had a handful of planner appointments today, 4 of them. And we had another inquiry. Trying to remember the list here. Yeah, it has very much been a long day.
So,
A lot of it dealt with grading one pond proposal, right, Hickory Lane. Abutting the Bark River, potential project there, but they have to work with county first and DNR.
so of the people that we saw today, none of them were ready to put anything forward, but if you talk about what we have coming up. So we know that on the 19th, we have 2 things, let the plan commission, just a reminder for them. And then if we have
Yes.
anything already that you've looked at a little bit on what's gonna be on the September, that's all that, I don't
Thank
think
you.
what we
Could
talked
I
about
mention
today
one
is
thing?
anything.
The 2 things are the Quick Trip, obviously, and the agritourism. We are going to give you a homework assignment when you get your materials for the 19th. There are 3 things that we're going to be asking you to prepare for, so we can have some good discussions, so we can, at the next month. We promised you a draft ordinance this month, and you're gonna get it. And with that, there's some policy, some discussion that needs to be made. One is going to be the definition of traditional agricultural uses. We're going to give you a overall, really broad definition. Because as you will recall, I told you that we're writing this to preserve traditional farming activities. And your planner's done a great job of looking at your code and compiling all of the activities, but it may be way too broad. You might want to narrow it just to crop farming, livestock and orchards and, that might, and pick your own strawberry type of thing. But we're giving you the kitchen sink. So please carefully review that. It's not even, I'm not being critical, it's not probably even artfully drawn because it just is a culmination of lots of ideas, all right? Everything else in the zoning district is accessory use. And we're gonna give you a list of maybe 20 potential accessory uses that could be allowed by a site plan and plan of operation approval to help preserve the traditional agricultural. And again, we're giving you the kitchen sink. And you may say, whoa. I mean, even in talking to Bassie's, they've asked us to strike some of them. No, we're never gonna do that. Don't put that in there, okay? And we will get from Bassie's before we mail it to you, them striking some, okay? The last one is the much simpler one. And we have a lot of prohibited uses in our code under certain zoning districts. The key one, of course, for all of you is adult-oriented establishments. That will be on the list. But other things that are prohibited will also be put on that list. So that's your homework assignment. Look at the definition and meld that over in your mind. Look at all the accessory uses and see whether they're palatable or not to you. And lastly, look at the prohibited. Fair enough. So I just thought I'd give you the heads up. And the more homework you do in those three areas, the better we'll be able to get through that on the night.
So I wanted, it sounded, the attorney gave you a lot of information and it sounds very onerous, but we're going to give you a list and you go through the list and just cross out the things that you're not interested in.
I didn't think it was on. Did any of you
Some-
feel like you were gonna stay awake nights?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Is
sounds
there,
good.
is there any cookies with this, like free ice cream or something if we do? We're supposed to.
So,
For your
Alright.
homework assignment?
Yeah,
there you go.
That's up to you and your wife.
Might bring some, so if you come prepared.
I
So
think
that's
you'll have
for-
fun. I think you'll have fun looking at it.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
So that's for August
Fun.
19th. We'll have a fun time that night. I just looking ahead to September, have potentially Mary Hill Road, Newman Development may come forward, or did they submit a concept? Okay. Oh, got it. I've still got some emails I have to work through, so. I was expecting something from Carrick on their Lindale Road project, but I guess we didn't see that today either.
The
So,
only thing that was submitted was the attorney who wants to do the subdivision plan.
for Celtic Ridge.
Yes.
Got it. Those are some of the ones I have to catch up on.
Celtic Ridge, if you remember, has the tower on the property, and with that tower, it doesn't allow for other, it doesn't allow for a couple of the properties to be developed. And they want to come forward and see what can be done to develop those. The parents have passed and they're trying to close up this subdivision, and the tower is not being used at this time. My understanding is the owner of the tower, or the VC of the tower, is not willing to give up his, contract, even though he has no antennas on it at this point. But they're gonna come forward and ask for some consideration. So, yeah.
sounds like a lot.
Sounds like enough.
Yes.
Right.
You'll be happy to know, commission members, that there is heavy equipment sitting right off of Lake 5 Road for the beginning of, I am assuming, the road grading that's going to start with Twin Pines Phase whatever. Phase 2, 3, I've lost track.
All right.
Also give you a heads up, we've got a possible project that we might hear from in Lisbon Business Park East. It's gonna be a fast pace if we get it, if they want to start digging in before the end of the year. And so if we get through the process and sign a contract, we're gonna possibly be asking for a special plan commission meeting so we can get this through quickly. I don't have any dates. I don't have anything to follow through. I just wanted to put it out there in your mind that we might ask you for a date in the future. Be worthwhile. I can explain it to you. It'll be worthwhile.
Okay,
And she'll have ice cream and cookies.
right.
It actually catered.
All right.
Now we're going ice cream. Yeah, I know.
So I'm going right after this meeting. All right. Item 7 is adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ed Nelson. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky. We're gonna have no discussion on this one. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You're out 5-0 at 8:34. Thank you.